Okay, welcome to an unexpected live stream today. Not going to be a super long one, but it's the first of a few that I'm doing this week now that I've actually had a break in what I needed to do with Logic previous to upgrading. You can't always just upgrade the second it comes out, it turns out. But now I've upgraded and have been using it for a little bit. 10.8 is what I would consider really 10.7.10 because we saw one big major update, which is the mastering assistant. The other two effects we already had access to on the iPad version. So we knew that they were coming to the full version at some point. And then a bunch of small things, which I've already gone over in a previous video. We went through the release notes, and there's some things in there which are cool. It's great. It's nice to know that we're constantly getting updates, better latency compensation for side chaining and little visual tweaks and so forth are all great things. But obviously the big thing is the mastering, and then those two plugins which have moved over. And they're fine. They're great. They're super great. But it's certainly, I think that they just backed themselves slightly into a corner with the numbering system, or are working on something bigger and just not trying to do too much in the interim. Apple loves its incremental updates these days. If you look back, and this is the perspective you always need to have, if you look back at Logic, when version 10 first came out to now, it's a massive change, right? It's all these small changes added together to one big change. So I don't think we should lose sight of that. And we also know that based on what happened with Final Cut a couple years ago, I don't necessarily think Apple wants to make a huge change and alienate a bunch of users. And so, thank goodness, we come into Logic and it looks about the same. We don't want it to look different every time. We don't want to relearn an interface every time there's an update. What we want is to be able to continue working and have some added features and added functionality. And so I think that that's really great. But I really do like the two new instruments that came out on the iPad version of Logic. The iPad version of Logic is still a huge mess. It wasn't a big update. It was, a 0.1 or whatever, 1.1. And it's still usable, but sometimes barely. So I'll share some of those feelings at a different time. But the mastering tool for someone like me is perfect. And I'll explain a couple of reasons why. First and foremost, it's got like a bug fly in my mouth there. Okay, well, good. First and foremost, it's built into Logic. I'll take that any day as a quick tool over a third-party piece of software. Here's what we've learned in the past year or two that we've also learned in the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, right? It's like we constantly are learning this. Apple is doing a new operating system every year. That's what they want to do. I like it. It means that we get new features every year. We get refinements every year. They pull out things that really aren't working and hopefully try new things which might work better. And they always are building this into something that it's like the evolution of OS, I think, is a good pace. Some people hate it. They wish that it would just stay the same for 2 years or more. But it's like those are the same people who don't want to ever buy new computers because their one that they bought was great when they bought it and it costs a lot of money. I get all of those things. There's so many sides to this, right? third-party providers, third-party plugins and companies that build add-ons, some of them stay up on top of this and do really good. I mean, there's mechanisms in place to make sure that they can. But however, many of them have shown that they're either not able to, not willing to, or they think they can just skate by without doing it, right? So it's like I hate relying on third-party tools if I can have a tool that does pretty much the same job inside. So for me, having this mastering assistant inside Logic means that whenever Logic updates, assuming they don't break something with a new update, the mastering assistant is going to work. And it's going to work from day one of that upgrade until, the next time Apple has a chance to break something. So far, I mean, everyone has their favorite tools. And so this is not necessarily suggesting that you should leave your favorite things behind for this. I'm just saying, in my case, I don't want to spend the extra money for like quick and dirty exports using something like Ozone. It's like, great, cool. I have always been more of a traditional mastering person anyway, using the tools that we would have used 15 years ago, EQ and compression limiting, all of those things, which I think you can still come up with great mixes that sound great and that are mastered well. On top of that, I am still a firm believer that if you see your mastering tools having to do a ton of work, that you should go back to the mix. I believe you should go back to the mix and make the mix better. Never assume that the mastering phase is going to fix your project. The mastering phase, in most cases, should just prepare the final format to make sure it matches what you need, and perhaps every once in a while elevate the project just that ever so slightly more. And so, let's see, Earth Roots America says, I've quit Logic and making music, sometimes fun, but generally pointless. Oh, cool. And hello, LA Winter as well. But I've been working on a song for a little bit on and off. This semester at the university has been really busy for me, teaching additional classes to cover some faculty openings we have. By the way, if you're a qualified faculty member candidate, you should apply for our jobs at the University of Colorado, Denver, if you have your stuff. But I've been teaching extra, so my song stuff has slowed down quite a bit. And it's hopefully over the break and then into next semester is going to really ramp up again. But I was working on the song and I had just like a limiter on it. Here's just this section of it. I'm going to play it. Hopefully it comes through. So that's unmastered, almost mixed. There's a distinction there. It's not done. I still have to work on some of the other sections, but I just have like a basic limiter. And then I would come back and probably do some equalization, maybe a little bit to figure out where I'm deficient on it. But it was really nice to turn on the mastering plugin and ever so slightly, the vocals are a little bit clearer, a little bit more present. The mix sounds more even overall. I get an idea of what the mix was doing from the curve here, and then I could throw on a little bit of other things just to mess with it. But this to me is really useful. It's useful because it helps inform me where the mix is sitting by how much this is having to do. And then I can go back and think, you know what, it's right. The bass is not great, or the mid-range is too muddy, or I don't have enough clarity in the high range. And then I go back and resculpt the mix a little bit. Much like an arranger or a composer, when they're doing an orchestral symphony, for instance, right? When that thing gets played, they don't get to say, oh, there's too much mid-range, let's EQ that out. It's like they tell the violas or, the horns to play softer, and that changes it. Or they write them in a different octave. They transpose it so when they're playing it in a different place. Or they're like saying have half the players play, or double the players. It's like this orchestration mentality means a lot to me personally, but it won't mean the same to everybody. But this tells me what the performance is doing, and then I get to go back and make those changes. So cool. I love it. So the mastering assistant, which I keep on wanting to call metering, but mastering assistant is really useful. Plus, it gets you into the right place for LUFSs and TruePeak for Apple streaming. And so you'll have to think of ways to maybe put another limiter after this to get it ready for a CD release. But why? Right? Why do you want to put it on CD anyway? That's a great question. Some people really do need them on CDs still and want to make them sound good. So if you're putting this on vinyl, you'll send it to a vinyl place that actually does the mastering prep for the cutting. I mean, it's like there's still different situations for this. This to me could have gone on any version of Logic though. And that's why I say this is really 10.8 is really 10.7.10, is because this could have gone on any version of Logic, I think. Now, they're relying somewhat on the neural network for some of these. You have to have this, and this is really beginning to show what's happening with Logic. They're getting tired of Rosetta. You can't run all of this in Rosetta mode, which means if you're still using Rosetta for certain plugins, you're going to be limited just to the clean, I think. And so you have to turn off Rosetta. You have to have a Silicon Mac, and then you can have access to all of the different character options, which are what are apparently using the neural network, right? We've seen the neural stuff popping up in multiple places. For instance, in this, I've seen a bunch of people say, ooh, there's a new pitch correction plugin. This actually came out in a previous version. The new look and the new power. Although the neural pitch detection came out previously. And so we actually had the power of that previous than 10.8. And it sounds so much better in my opinion. I think this pitch correction is finally getting up there with some of the best ones out there for monophonic pitch adjustments. But that again says the neural pitch detection. I mean, okay, so we're starting to use this word neural a lot for things, which I don't, it's not quite like AI or artificial intelligence. It's just talking about the silicon method of processing and how that all ties together. So the other two plugins, I really do want to do some of them, the songwriting nights and showcase those instruments individually. But I think overall, everything else for me feels pretty much the same, very familiar. And so that is always a good thing. I think opening a piece of software and not having to feel like it's a totally different thing. Is this the version of Logic that would have made me convert to Silicon over Intel? Ugh, probably not. In the same way that spatial audio wouldn't have been the one for me. And so, who knows about that specifically? Ollie, what are you, tell everybody what you're talking about. I'm curious. And we don't, this isn't an Ableton channel, but Ableton's cool. Everybody's adding things in their new versions. Ableton is obviously has been one of the more innovative ones for a long time. MIDI patterns, generate inspiration, MIDI generators. I love other software. Yeah, AI is everywhere. I'm actually doing a new book right now for Routledge under Focal Press, and there's going to be a lot in there about AI and how it does things. Um, cool. I love I love the possibilities of all of this stuff. I do feel like, honestly, that Apple is slow to the game, but once they finally do it, it's going to be a big deal. But you can't buy a piece of software. And this is maybe the next stream I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little teaser on it. Um, the next stream I want to do is all about how it's going to mirror some of Earth Roots America comments that just came through earlier, which is, what's the point, right? What's the point of all of this? Why ever switch to a different piece of software if you can learn one and make music in it? Why are you on YouTube watching content instead of making music in the first place? Hopefully you're just on an ear break and you're going to go back and make some amazing things. But it's you have to some point create if you want to create for whatever reason it is. Maybe it's because you're just somebody who has musical ideas and you want to do it. Maybe you're someone who thinks that you're going to make it big, which by the way is unlikely. It's super unlikely that you're going to be a famous musician. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try, but have some realistic expectations in there a little bit, and a plan for what that means. You don't have to be a famous musician in order to make a living as a musician. You can actually just have a small fan base. You can have, 1,000 people is not a small fan base, but 1,000 people and you can have an amazing career. 500 people and you can have like a decent career. If there are the 500 that want to invest in everything you do, what you need is not a huge fan base. You need a loyal spending fan base, I suppose. Someone who's willing to invest in what you're doing. So you need to actually get past this thing about the software, right? I remember a friend of mine back in the early days used to say that he just wanted to go to like a beach somewhere with a crappy instrument and learn how to play that instrument as good as possible and just master the simple tools with high quality music. And I was like, you know what? That actually, I don't want to do that myself, but it rings true a little bit. It's like, you don't need the latest, greatest Logic to do anything. There's nothing in this that you can't do in other ways. You can do that with Logic, previous versions of Logic, all the way back to the beginning. You don't need any of these latest and greatest tools. You just need the inspirational spark and a desire to make something. And you can do that with like a cassette recorder or, a memo recorder, a little digital thing. You can do that with any tool. And then you just have to be willing to put in the time to master that tool. So that being said, I love having all the additional tools. But nothing about Logic in the last few versions would I exchange for just the years of using Logic, so that when I have an idea and I want to do it, I can just do it because I have mastery of the software. If you said, ooh, you could do that way easier in Ableton. Well, no, I couldn't. It's like I've used Ableton. I actually did a whole training course for a company about Ableton a few versions ago. And I remember going through that thinking, okay, I can see a lot of the promise of Ableton, just like with FL Studio, just like with Studio One, just like with even Pro Tools or Reaper. It's like if you master that tool, you can do anything you want with it. That's my argument for mastery rather than for features. Features are great. Mastery is critical. Being able to think of an idea, put it down, and know like what tool to grab to enhance it and elevate it, that's going to be the critical thing. So it's that intangible mastery that's way more important than just being able to say, ooh, now I'm going to switch to Logic because they added an AI thingamajigger. You know, it's like, who cares? The features aren't what do this. That being said, I mean, this last summer I took a group of students to the Czech Republic where we did some recording, just some fun recordings in a great hall of a castle where we were staying. And we just pulled out the iPad and my SSL12 interface and a microphone and had fun. But we had the whole system in such a portable space. And I think that there are some things about the portability that are attractive to me because it means the mastery then goes into a smaller footprint, right? And the mastery that we have of our tools and the idea. So the idea that happens in our mind to the final format is more efficient, a straighter path. I think the mastery of our tools helps us with that. Let me see some of these comments. And then Ollie, I love that your alchemy strong. Alchemy is amazing. Sample alchemy and the full alchemy. Two of the most powerful things in Logic, in my opinion, as well. And then Pretty Lights music. Yeah. Prime example. You don't need a big one. That's the thing. I think, we're just coming out of this era, hopefully, right? We're still in it, right? Amazon, Apple, Meta. Oof. It's like these huge, massive companies that rule everything. If you couldn't make a list. It would be too long for all the companies that Amazon put out of business. Not directly, but indirectly, right? They provide a service that is so attractive. You just like go on your device, say, I want that. It could be that day. It could be in a couple days. It just shows up at your door. Isn't that the dream of like technology? Think of something, it shows up. Perfect. But we don't always think of the indirect consequences of that. And so we're coming out of this era of the bigger is better. And I hope that the upcoming generations are going to really embrace the more community-based approaches to so many things, including music, which means back to the days of someone can actually have a living in a small market with a relatively small audience. Now, I mean, I'm not sure I'm even allowed to say the words Taylor Swift on a stream without getting demonetized. But, I mean, that's like billions of dollars were just earned on this tour she did, right? It's so big and so massive. I would take $1 billion, don't get me wrong, but that's not the engine of music that I want for my children's children, I want to know the artists that we're listening to and have them be a part of the community and be supportive in ways that people can live and sustain their lives that way. That to me is more important than having a massive following, is having a meaningful following, but still paying your bills and eating food and all of those other important things. We digress. Logic 10.8. It has worked for me. Some people have said that it's slower, using more CPU. I haven't experienced any of those things. It has worked just fine. It hasn't crashed any additional times. It seems to be super smooth. I'm on the latest everything, though. Latest OS 10, latest iPad OS, latest Logic for Mac, Logic for iPad, everything latest and greatest. Minimal number of third-party effects currently installed, but that I use them as I need them. Reason Rack is currently installed, all the Eventide, a bunch of Wave stuff, a number of other things. I do have a lot installed, but it's still minimal compared to some. And Ollie, I love sidetracks. Sidetracks are the best. Oof. We do need some more ranty videos coming up though, because it's like I'm so tired of the whole like online complaining of no matter what, right? Complaining no matter what. If it's good, complain. If it's bad, you complain. It's like, ooh, just cut the complaining. It's like I don't need an ad blocker. I need an attitude blocker. It's like I'll watch an ad if I can just block all the people who complain endlessly. It's like, give me the stupid ad. Just don't give me the stupid. Has anybody, we're going about 10 more minutes. Has anybody actually had any issues with Logic with the new version? We have a group watching. Sample alchemy crashes. Cool. There was the other feature that people were talking about was the drummer tracks being able to go on third-party drummers. I did want to say that even before, you could always load up a separate drum kit inside the drummer tracks. You didn't have to. I mean, you can now pull the regions other places, but you could always load up a third-party drummer on a drummer track itself. So that is not even a full new feature. I have not tried RipX. Cool. I believe you. LA Winter, you're always trying stuff. I love that. And the gain for Ollie on Sample Alchemy is an issue. Interesting. Like I said, I'm going to do a songwriting. I do those songwriting nights. I haven't done one in a couple of weeks. Where we just make start a new song, and I'm going to do one that uses both of the new instruments in it as the primary sound material. So look for that in the next week, probably one of the nights this week. Otherwise, I don't. Like I said, it feels like a small update. It's a bigger one in some ways, and just because of the mastering, but I don't know. I think it feels like a relatively medium-sized or small update to me. When we get the eventual Logic 11, I hope they're working on it now, because it better not just be like 16 new drummer packs. Welcome to Logic 11. Cool. Well, let's pull the plug. I just wanted to be this short video, my initial feelings about this, and we talked about a number of different things which were cool, and getting my streaming stuff dusted off so I can do a bunch of streams this week. So we're going to be doing that, and really exploring some of these things. I know that some of the other bigger YouTube channels have gone into the instruments, but we're going to do them in a slightly different way, where we're actually doing the songwriting nights and using them in the creation of a song instead of just explaining each of the features like the manual does. So I don't want to duplicate what others are doing on YouTube. You have a lot of sources to get information, and yet I want to provide things that are actually useful for you. So look for those streams. Maybe we'll have to do an Ableton comparison video. We need to do a Luna comparison video, Logic versus Luna. Luna from UAD just became free. You don't have to use the Luna or the UAD hardware anymore. It's not just free, it's unbridled. So more stuff coming. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you later.